Hello, dear fans of A Story Time with Chu Kyo channel. Today is another wonderful day to immerse ourselves in the world of captivating stories. I have prepared an extremely interesting series, guaranteed to make you roll with laughter or scream because it's just that good. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give me a like for motivation, and comment below to chat with me. You can also become a member to watch videos early. Now, without further ado, let's watch. The story begins when Harry's mother tells her to go buy green onions to make dried fish soup. At that moment, Harry was busy on her phone and initially refused, saying someone else should go because it wasn't her job. Her mother insisted, reminding her that her older brother, Haru, had just completed his military service and must be very tired, so she should help out this time. Reluctantly agreeing, Harry still grumbled that she was always the one being sent on errands. Her mother added that she should buy the onions at the supermarket, not the convenience store, because it was cheaper there. Later, as Harry was walking home after buying the onions, she muttered in annoyance that her family always used Haru's military service as an excuse to favor him. She recalled that, even as a child, Haru had always received more attention while she was often forgotten. It was no different now. Haru was successfully studying at medical school, while she was unemployed, feeling abandoned and uncared for. Frustrated and thinking it was pointless to dwell on those feelings, she decided to hurry home. But just as she was crossing the street, Harry was suddenly hit by a car and died in the accident. However, instead of everything ending, she heard a voice echo, "The child was born healthy. What a blessing." Confused, Harry didn't understand what was happening because she clearly remembered the sensation of dying. But now she felt warm as if wrapped in a soft blanket and then realized she had been reborn. As she, now a newborn baby, rolled around in the blanket, someone nearby exclaimed that His Majesty would surely be pleased. Hearing this, Harry was stunned, wondering if she had been reborn as a princess. Shortly after, something was put in her mouth, probably milk, which made her feel full and comfortable. Someone gently patted her, calling her a beautiful princess. At this point, Harry was extremely excited, believing she had truly been reborn as a princess and that His Majesty they mentioned must be her father. She was happy because in her previous life, she had always lived in her brother's shadow, and now she looked forward to a new, joyful, and glorious life. She hoped she wouldn't have a brother like Haru this time, but a younger sister would be fine. Full of curiosity and excitement, she wondered who her new parents were. Someone saw her move and said they would go inform His Majesty. Harry was nervous, wondering what her new family would be like. Not long after, the Emperor appeared. Although reminded that he had an important meeting, he insisted on seeing Eliza's child first. Hearing the name Eliza, Harry felt a little anxious. Was that her mother's name? And why did the Emperor sound so distant? She began to have doubts. Was she really a princess, or just the daughter of a duke? But at the very least, she still hoped she belonged to some noble class. Mustering her courage, Harry opened her eyes and saw the Emperor and his aide. But when she looked at herself, she was shocked to discover she had been reborn as a dog. Both the Emperor and his aide were stunned when they heard the dog seemingly mutter, "Damn it." They tried to ignore it, thinking perhaps the Emperor was just overtired. Harry trembled in despair, realizing her dream of a golden, aristocratic life had completely shattered. Meanwhile, the aide sadly said that her mother did not survive childbirth and only a single puppy remained. He said he would inform the stable manager to take care of her. Ari, now the new name in Harry's mind, panicked when she heard she would be sent to the stables. She felt like her dream of living in luxury was fading away. Despite her anxiety, she decided that if she couldn't be a noble, she would at least live as a royal pet. In desperation, she shouted that she would become the Empire's guard dog. The Emperor and his aide were astonished to realize the dog could actually speak. The Emperor turned in surprise to ask for his aide's opinion, Sir Aben. Aben immediately suggested that Harry should be killed, arguing that a talking dog was a dangerous threat. Hearing this, Harry trembled, wondering if she had been too hasty and was about to die right after being reborn. She broke out in a cold sweat but still tried to speak, warning that if they killed her, she would curse the entire empire. However, she realized they weren't listening to her. She burst into tears, begging them not to kill her because she had just been born and only wanted to live happily. Seeing Harry cry so pitifully, The emperor hesitated, and finally agreed to spare her life. Harry was so surprised she couldn't believe it and asked again. The emperor's aide questioned this decision, but the emperor, fascinated by the idea of a talking dog, decided to observe Harry for a while. The aide suggested raising Harry with the other dogs in the stables under the care of the stable manager. Harry was shocked and firmly objected, loudly declaring that she was an independent puppy with the right to choose her own master. She put her front paws together as if begging the emperor, pleading with him to raise her himself, promising to repay the favor one day. The emperor laughed at how strange the situation was, saying this was truly a special experience, a talking puppy personally choosing him as her master. With a slight smile, he agreed to take Harry with him. Harry beamed with joy, calling it a wise decision. As the emperor picked her up, he joked that he didn't know what to name her, then muttered the suggestion Uffy. Harry quickly spoke up, insisting that a dynamic puppy like her should get to choose her own name. She proudly introduced herself. "My name is Harry." As he carried Harry and started to walk, the emperor was questioned by his aide, Aben, about whether it was really safe to let the dog live. With a doubtful expression, Aben made the emperor calmly repeat that they had already discussed it and reassured him that a newborn puppy couldn't be dangerous. Meanwhile, Harry breathed a sigh of relief, hoping Aben wouldn't say anything more now that the emperor had decided to keep her. The emperor put Harry down in a room and said that from now on, this would be where Uffy stays. Annoyed, Harry thought to herself, "I already made it clear my name isn't Uffy." Seeing her displeased reaction, the emperor asked if she didn't like the room. Harry remained annoyed, clearly frustrated by the name and the whole situation. Meanwhile, Aben reminded the emperor that they were about to be late for their meeting. Realizing this, the emperor quickly prepared to leave. As they stepped out, Harry ran after them, calling out, but the door was immediately locked behind them. Left alone, Harry felt anxious and began to have doubts, wondering if the emperor, whom she thought was kind and considerate, was actually just an arrogant person who was careless with others. She started to suspect whether he had really been listening to her at all. Elsewhere in the palace, two maids were gossiping about the emperor. They mentioned that he had recently purged a large number of rebels, demonstrating his power and decisiveness. Harry pressed her ear to the door, eavesdropping as the maids continued their conversation. They spoke of the ongoing bloodshed in the empire, revealing that the current emperor, Eisen Valerian Resendo, was the one who had launched the rebellion, killing his own siblings and personally murdering his father to seize the throne. Now, he was a tyrannical king facing a wave of rebellion from the nobility. He had suppressed these rebellions, making the atmosphere in the empire extremely tense. Hearing this, Harry felt trapped and full of anxiety. She wondered why she had been reborn into such a chaotic and bloody world. She sighed. If I had to be reincarnated, it should have been to a peaceful place. She began to fear for her life, realizing that if the rebels attacked the palace, she could die along with them. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Harry vented her frustration by hitting a pillow, imagining it was her brother and blaming him for pushing her into this terrible situation. Then, she looked at herself, wondering if she could survive in such a brutal place. Or at least, could her cute appearance soften the emperor's heart? She looked in the mirror to assess the situation and was quite surprised by how adorable she looked. She even noticed the small calluses under her paws and the cute tail wagging behind her. She believed that, with such an appearance, she might be able to win the emperor's affection and live a life of luxury as a royal pet. Deciding that being a pampered puppy in a wealthy family might be the best option, Harry imagined herself playing on the emperor's lap, acting cute and charming him with her adorableness. She imagined herself saying, "I love the sound of your majesty tearing silk." Then the emperor would immediately order all the silk from the national treasury to be brought out. Harry found the thought of being pampered like that amusing and wondered when the emperor would return because she was hungry. Later, the emperor and Aben were talking to each other. Aben asked if the emperor intended to visit the dog again, and the emperor confirmed that he did. Aben expressed concern, suspecting that the dog might be a spy sent by Pancrazio from the north, and advised caution, even suggesting getting rid of it. However, the emperor seemed unconcerned, asking in return why Aben was so wary of a dog. He admitted that he had also considered the possibility of the dog being a spy, but dismissed the idea because many people in the palace had witnessed its birth. And since it was raised in the palace from birth, it was almost impossible for it to have been swapped. He shrugged, saying it was just a talking dog. Aben was surprised by the emperor's lack of suspicion, asking why he wasn't more careful. The emperor simply replied gently that maybe it was because it was a dog, and because it was cute. When they arrived at Harry's room, the emperor called for Uffie and found Harry crying, saying she was hungry. The emperor comforted her and, realizing she hadn't eaten anything, promised to have someone bring food. Harry got excited thinking about eating delicious food, eagerly wondering if the emperor would call the chef. She imagined the food in the palace would be magnificent, with steak and cream soup. But her excitement quickly turned to shock when a dog named Bonita entered. The emperor explained that Bonita was one of his loyal dogs, and that since birth, Harry had been drinking Bonita's milk. Harry was stunned. She couldn't believe it. She froze on the spot as she realized the milk she had been drinking was dog's milk. The mere thought of it horrified her, and she immediately gagged. She protested vehemently, asking the emperor if feeding her dog's milk wasn't too much. Feeling disgusted and betrayed, she earnestly begged him to change the food. The emperor sighed, not knowing how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Bonita wagged her tail happily, smiling. But the emperor ordered Bonita to back away, which made the dog sad. Seeing Bonita's sad expression, Harry felt guilty, thinking to herself, "Don't look at me like that." Bonita left, and the emperor looked at Harry and asked what she wanted to eat, joking, "Do you want dog food?" Harry eagerly replied, insisting she wanted meat, especially steak and bulgogi chicken. However, the emperor pointed out that Harry didn't even have teeth yet, implying she couldn't eat those things. Harry thought angrily to herself, "I'm probably going to starve to death." The emperor told her to wait a moment and then left. Harry wondered if he was going to get food, guessing it would take at least 30 minutes. But the emperor returned very quickly, bringing a man with him. Harry was surprised by his speed. The emperor reassured her that food would arrive soon. Then he introduced the other man, who tremblingly explained that he had come on the emperor's orders and asked if there were any instructions. Harry was shocked when she saw the man, then hesitated, wondering if she was supposed to eat a person. The emperor quickly reassured her, saying the man was not for eating, and explained that she would recover her energy with holy power. The man began to tremble when he realized Harry could talk. Harry didn't understand what holy power was, but she was hungry and didn't care, so she approached him and demanded to be fed. The man used his power to transfer energy to her, making her feel warm as her hunger disappeared. Excited, Harry jumped on him and joked, "All right, from now on, you're my food." The man became even more frightened and quickly introduced himself as Boris. Harry was pleased with the name and introduced herself in return. When Boris mentioned that the emperor called her Uffie, Harry irritably corrected him, "I'm not Uffie." The emperor observed that they were interacting quite well, thinking that they were both young and got along. He suddenly remembered he had court affairs to attend to, so he said he had to leave. Harry enthusiastically agreed, telling him to visit again later. The emperor told the two of them to play nicely, and Harry, feeling cared for, nodded happily and climbed onto Boris's shoulder. Boris laughed and joked that he would be good. However, Boris panicked and burst into tears, begging the emperor not to leave him behind, and then fainted from fear. Bored with the situation, Harry looked around, saw an open door, and decided to leave the room. She happily ran outside, shouting as she went, "Let's go." A maid and several other servants were startled and frightened, asking each other if that dog had just spoken. Harry smiled and replied, "Yes, a talking dog, so what?" The servants ran around in terror, calling her a monster. Harry didn't understand why they were so panicked and chased after them, calling out, "Wait, play with me." Seeing the people running and screaming, she laughed, finding it all very amusing. Suddenly, Aben appeared and picked Harry up, stopping her. Harry was surprised, mentally recalling that Aben was the emperor's cousin, head of the ducal family of Sylvester, and the youngest captain of the Knight Order. Aben asked her in a stern voice what she was doing. Harry replied irritably that she was just taking a walk to see the palace, then told him to put her down. Aben complied, but warned her seriously that he still didn't know her true identity, and if she caused trouble, he wouldn't be lenient, advising her to be careful. After hearing that warning, Harry suddenly felt anxious, not understanding what she had done wrong. She thought about how Aben treated her. He had disliked her from their first meeting, a complete contrast to the gentle care from the emperor. She sighed, missing the feeling of being protected by the emperor. Just then, the emperor appeared. As soon as she saw him, Harry's mood instantly brightened. She ran to him, and he picked her up, asking what had happened. Harry, emotional and teary-eyed, said there was something she hadn't had a chance to tell him. The Emperor curiously asked what it was. In a trembling voice, Harry confessed that she had gone out for a while and accidentally bumped into some people near the stairs. When she spoke to them, they ran away as if they had seen a ghost, which made her feel sad and confused. The Emperor asked again, "You really spoke to them?" Harry simply replied, "Yes." The Emperor waved his hand. "As long as you had fun, it doesn't matter." Harry was delighted by his understanding, which made the difference between the Emperor's kindness and Aben's petty scrutiny even clearer. The Emperor carried Harry with him, and Harry told him that Aben looked at her with suspicion, as if she were really just a dog. The Emperor reassured her that he would talk to Aben. Harry asked where they were going, and the Emperor said to his office. She suggested he could just take her back to her room, but he insisted she come with him. Harry hesitated slightly, thinking she would just be a nuisance. She was stunned, wondering if the Emperor was planning to show her off. They entered the office, and Sir, the Emperor's aide, greeted them, saying there were a few things to discuss. But he also wondered about the dog that was with them. Harry winked and said woof. Sir seemed uneasy, remarking that the dog looked very strange. Harry ran over to Sir and asked, "Never seen a talking dog before?" Sir was so shocked he fell to the floor. The Emperor reassured Sir, saying that while a talking dog was a bit strange, nothing was unusual in the royal family. Sir protested, stating clearly, "No, this is completely unusual." The Emperor said that Harry would become important in the future. Harry immediately reacted, "I'm not a dog." Sir was bewildered, feeling like he was the only one who didn't understand what was going on. Harry told him to accept the reality. Sir was stunned, wondering if Harry was the dog that Eliza had given birth to. The Emperor confirmed it, then explained that a talking dog could become a valuable diplomatic asset in the future and that he intended to make an official announcement, although Harry was still small. Hearing this, Harry was overjoyed, feeling useful for the first time in her life. She thought about her past, when she struggled to find a job and lived in poverty. Now she felt truly valuable. Excited, Harry ran to the Emperor's side, declaring that she would grow up strong and healthy, train hard, and study diligently. She promised to tell everyone about the greatness of the empire and make it the coolest nation in the world. Sir wondered what coolest meant, but couldn't hide his impression of Harry's enthusiasm. He asked for her name, and the Emperor replied, Uffy. Harry immediately insisted, "My name is Harry." Sir laughed and suggested just calling her Uffy since he was being paid by the Emperor. Harry got angry, threatened him, and demanded to be called by her correct name. Sir continued to tease her, deliberately calling her Uffy because he found her reaction amusing. Harry angrily clung to his leg, insisting on being called Harry, while Sir was delighted to be teasing her. The Emperor just stood by, watching them with an amused expression. 2 weeks later, two maids were discussing the divine beast that had been announced a few days prior. One named Jenna was preparing to make the Emperor's bed, hoping to catch a glimpse of the divine beast. The other maid wondered if something was wrong, as the divine beast was being kept in a closed room. Jenna guessed it was because the divine beast was still young and its teeth hadn't grown in yet, so it couldn't go out. She brought milk with her, hoping to win the divine beast's favor, believing the sacred creature could grant wishes. Both were extremely excited, imagining the divine beast would look very mysterious. They entered Harry's room, excited to see the divine beast with their own eyes. But upon entering, they found the room messy, and Harry was nowhere to be seen. At first, they thought Harry was hiding under the blanket. One of them shook the blanket and discovered her, and Harry asked, "Woof?" The two maids were delighted, praised her for being cute, and greeted her warmly. Harry was a little nervous but loved the attention, so she wagged her tail happily. A little while later, Harry started to feel a stomachache and discomfort. She growled from the pain, causing the Emperor to come and check on her. He asked if she was sleeping, but Harry whimpered that her stomach hurt badly. She thought back on her daily schedule, eating properly in front of Boris, chewing on her leg for fun, then sleeping while she waited. Excited, Harry told the Emperor about her day, how she had met some maids, played with them, and drank the delicious milk they brought. Hearing that, the Emperor's face turned purple with anger, and he asked who gave her human milk. Harry was terrified and quickly defended the maids, explaining that she was the one who asked for the milk and that Jenna and were very kind to her. She insisted that Jenna must have made an innocent mistake and begged the Emperor not to punish anyone. The emperor sighed, still seeming annoyed, but told Harry to bear with it for a little while. As they were leaving, Abel saw them and asked the emperor why he was bringing the dog along when he had an important meeting. The emperor replied, "Uffy is sick." Abel still glanced at Harry with suspicion. Harry saw this and felt anxious, wondering why Abel kept looking at her that way. Abel remarked that she looked really unwell and suggested the emperor go to the temple. He also announced that the emperor would be late for the meeting. Harry found Abel's behavior a bit strange today, but the emperor still thanked him. Later, the emperor went to see Archbishop Theosimo. Theosimo greeted him and asked if anything was wrong. The emperor said he was looking for Theosimo, then reassured him that there was no problem with Boris. The priest initially started to say Boris was just but stopped himself. Theosimo was surprised to hear the emperor call Boris an ordinary person, then explained that Boris was the youngest person ever to become an official priest and a potential candidate for the future papacy. He revealed that he had given Boris an important task and was very surprised to learn that Boris was taking care of a dog. Harry was annoyed by that comment and glared at Theosimo. Theosimo noticed and asked, "Is this that dog?" and began to use healing magic on her, saying she needed care. As he turned to leave, Harry was stunned that it happened so quickly. She shouted in frustration, complaining that he couldn't just talk bad about someone behind their back and then leave like that. Theosimo stopped, turned to look at Harry, and told the emperor that he had heard rumors about a talking dog and found it miraculous. The emperor confirmed that the dog could indeed talk, but denied the rumor that she was the royal divine beast, then asked Theosimo for his assistance. Afterwards, the emperor thought about the current situation. He said that although he had been the emperor of the Rizendel Empire for a year, he still didn't fully understand his subordinates. Since he took the throne through a rebellion, many still doubted his authority, and the rebel faction continued to cause instability everywhere. The emperor realized that having a talking dog could be an opportunity. If he declared Harry the royal divine beast, it could strengthen his position and authority without facing too much resistance. Theosimo was curious about the dog's true identity and asked for clarification. The emperor explained that the dog's name was Uffy and that she called herself the guardian of the empire. When she grew up, he planned to officially declare her the royal divine beast. The divine beast part could wait. The emperor requested the temple to keep this matter confidential. Theosimo agreed to the emperor's request, but added that it was strange for the emperor to come see him personally, as such matters were usually handled by sending someone. He guessed there must be a special reason for the emperor's interest in the dog. The emperor replied briefly and somewhat humorously, because it is. The next day, Harry, in high spirits, walked down the hallway, excited to go outside the palace. She ran into Jenna and the two maids, and they immediately recognized her. Jenna asked worriedly, "Are you feeling okay?" Because she heard from a butler that Harry had been very sick after drinking human milk, which dogs shouldn't have. Harry reassured them, saying her stomach only hurt a little and that she was completely fine now. Jenna breathed a sigh of relief, glad that Harry had recovered, and curiously asked Harry where she was going, and Harry excitedly replied that she was about to go outside the palace. Hearing this, an offer to take her out, but Harry saw the water bucket nearby, realized the maids were still busy, so she declined and said she could go by herself. As she continued on her way, Jenna and waved goodbye, reminding her to be careful. Harry happily headed for the gate, thinking to herself, finally getting out of the palace. But suddenly, her body began to float into the air. Panicked, before she could even react, a girl appeared. She looked at Harry and asked if she was the famous puppy, then greeted her with a hi. Harry looked at the girl, stunned by her beauty, and asked with a tremble, "Who are you?" The girl replied casually, telling Harry she looked more mature than she expected for a puppy. When Harry asked again who she really was, the girl revealed she was a princess. Harry was shocked, trembling as she asked, "Are you the emperor's daughter?" The princess laughed, lifting Harry up like a toy and calling her a clever little puppy. Then she added that the emperor was actually her younger brother. Harry was startled. "Oh, really?" The princess then asked if Harry could spare some time for her. Harry nodded in agreement, still dazed by the princess's beauty and also curious about the rumor that all royals had red eyes. The two sat together in a room, with the princess praising Harry for being cute and funny. Harry playfully said she would do a breakdance for her. The princess laughed and asked, "Do you want to live with me? I promise to treat you very well." Harry replied, "This is the 374,625th time I've been asked, but I have a mission to complete, so I can't accept." The princess burst out laughing, saying Harry's determination was cute, then pretended to threaten, "Then I'll just have to kidnap you." Harry was horrified, insisting she couldn't be taken away. The princess continued to joke, offering Harry a larger and more luxurious room, trying to convince her to stay. She kept making attractive offers. First was a bigger new room. Harry refused, saying her current room was good enough. Then came premium pet food. Harry shook her head again, saying she didn't like dog food. When the princess curiously asked why, Harry confessed that because she used to be human, she couldn't stand eating that stuff. The princess still hadn't given up, but she was gradually realizing that no matter how much she offered, Harry was steadfastly unwilling to move. Harry teased back, "Do you like me that much, princess?" The princess nodded emphatically, saying Harry was just too cute. She also said she would visit often to change Harry's mind. Harry replied nonchalantly, "That's up to you. Whether you come or not is your business." But then she curiously asked for the princess's name. The girl replied, "My name is Brillia." A bit old-fashioned, isn't it? Harry's eyes widened in praise. "It's a beautiful name. How about we trade names?" Princess Brillia continued to tease Harry by calling her Princess Uffy, which annoyed Harry. She quickly corrected her, "My name is Harry. It's a very beautiful name, but everyone calls me Uffy because of the Emperor." Brillia burst out laughing at Harry's frustration, then promised to pass the message to Eisen. Before leaving, when Harry pointed out that the door was in the opposite direction, Brillia smiled and revealed, "I'm a mage," and vanished. Harry was stunned by the sudden disappearance, thinking to herself, Brillia is truly amazing. Initially, she was surprised that Brillia didn't have the red eyes rumored among the royal family. Now, Harry was genuinely envious. Brillia was not only a princess and beautiful, but also a mage, like a character with fully buff stats in a game. Harry wished to herself, "If only I could have been born into a life like that." At the same time, Brillia was thinking about Harry and decided she would tell Rio about the talking dog. Elsewhere, Abel informed the Emperor that Princess Brillia had requested an audience. The Emperor nodded and went with Abel, wishing him a successful meeting. When Brillia met the Emperor, she bowed deeply, formally addressing him as the greatest son of the Empire. The Emperor was surprised by her sudden seriousness and asked why she was being so polite today. Brillia smiled playfully, saying she wanted to maintain a good relationship with him. Sensing something strange, the Emperor asked directly, "What trouble have you caused now?" Brillia smiled brightly, saying she hadn't done anything wrong, just that she had a favor to ask. She urged the Emperor to agree first, but he said sternly, "I have to hear it before I decide." Brillia mentioned Harry's name, which made the Emperor immediately startle and cut her off with a firm no. Brillia asked in annoyance if he was refusing just because he guessed what she was about to say. The Emperor confirmed yes. He knew Brillia was going to ask to take Harry with her. Seeing Eisen's unusually serious attitude, Brillia realized the Emperor wasn't going to be as easygoing as she thought this time. Brillia seemed to accept it gracefully, understanding that the Emperor must be very fond of Harry. She recalled how Harry was surprised to learn she was a princess, even asking if she was the Emperor's daughter. The memory made her find it incredibly cute. The Emperor agreed, also admitting that Harry was very adorable. Brillia said she would visit Harry again, but also reminded herself that wasn't the main reason she came. She changed the subject to something more serious. Duke Mail. She informed the Emperor that Duke Mail was secretly mobilizing his forces. Brillia assumed that even though she had heard whispers of this early on, Eisen surely already knew. The Emperor confirmed that he knew. Brillia criticized Duke Mail as a fool for coveting the throne, something that would never have belonged to him, even if his father hadn't died. She recalled bitterly, since she had renounced her right to the succession, Eisen had naturally become the first heir. She lamented that if it weren't for the incident years ago, Eisen wouldn't have been branded a tyrant. She took part of the responsibility for that herself. Finally, Brillia said there were rumors that Duke Mail was planning something in the Goban region. The Emperor was surprised, as this was the first he had heard of it. Brillia was relieved that she had managed to inform him early. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the Emperor said he would contact the main clan leaders to handle it, then thanked Brillia. She just replied lightly, "It's nothing." In his heart, the Emperor thought, "Once I've dealt with the rebels, I will officially announce Harry as the divine beast." That evening, when the Emperor returned, his mind was still on Harry. When he checked her room, he discovered Harry wasn't there. He asked a maid about Harry's whereabouts. The maid said that Harry had mentioned she would go to the main palace after meeting Princess Brillia. Other than that, there was nothing strange, just that Harry was very happy and ran off so quickly that she didn't hear anything else. Somewhat reassured, the Emperor thought to himself that he should probably go get Harry himself. But just then, a guard ran up with a panicked look. He reported that 3 guards at the north gate had been discovered. The Emperor immediately asked, "Has the palace security been breached?" The soldier nodded in confirmation with a regretful look. The Emperor couldn't hide his surprise, as the palace was protected by 3 layers of barriers. The soldier explained that they were still searching for the culprit, but had not yet identified them. He also said that the guards near the annex had been murdered, indicating the enemy was still nearby. Hearing this, the Emperor immediately thought of Uffy, who had just left the area near the annex. Immediately, he went to the remaining group of soldiers and quickly gave orders. Deploy troops near the main gates to prevent the enemy's escape. Concentrate the search around the fortress walls, where they might be hiding. Mobilize all knights to converge on the main palace. The soldiers quickly dispersed to carry out the orders. Meanwhile, the Emperor worried that the assassin's appearance coincided with the time Harry went out. He considered whether to issue a separate order to find Harry. Just then, Aben appeared and called his name. The scene shifts to Harry, who was happily strolling outside. She was humming a song about Common's food, her mouth watering with craving. While chewing on a leaf, she realized she was lost. She felt that the atmosphere around her was very strange. Suddenly, an assassin with a blood-stained sword appeared. He placed the blade against her neck and sneered, calling her a puppy. Back at the palace, Aben asked the Emperor what was wrong. The Emperor said that Harry had gone outside the palace grounds. Aben was stunned and immediately decided to dispatch more knights to find her. The Emperor worried whether the rumor about Harry being a divine beast had leaked out. Although it hadn't been officially announced, many in the palace already knew. He feared that, with Duke Male's suspicious activities, the enemy might have discovered Harry's true identity. Seeing the clear worry on the Emperor's face, Aben couldn't understand why he was so anxious over a single dog. Even so, to put the Emperor's mind at ease, Aben decided to go find Harry himself. He told the Emperor to stay with the vice-captain of the Knight Order and promised to return as quickly as possible. Though annoyed, Aben hurried off, grumbling to himself about that troublesome puppy. But he also silently hoped that nothing bad had happened yet. Meanwhile, Harry, who was wandering outside, now had to face the blood-soaked assassin. He laughed when he saw her, saying she was very cute, looking just like a harmless puppy. Trembling all over, Harry immediately realized something extremely dangerous was happening. She glanced at the bloody knife in his hand. She grew more and more afraid, suspecting that he might attack her next. Thinking quickly, she decided the best course of action was to pretend to be a real dog, hoping to avoid suspicion. The assassin kept staring at her, making Harry's nerves stretch even tighter. In desperation, she started scratching herself like a puppy, trying to act as natural as possible, though she felt incredibly ashamed inside, her human dignity trampled. To make the act more convincing, Harry tried to bark, hoping it sounded authentic enough. She silently encouraged herself, thinking her performance was quite good. The assassin was still amused, casually saying that he thought he had just heard a human voice somewhere around here. That statement made Harry break out in a cold sweat, panicking. With a quick reflex, she immediately rolled onto the ground, tumbling around like a playful puppy, trying to show she was nothing more than a harmless little animal. Fortunately, the assassin let it go, assuming he must have misheard. Harry breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, another assassin wearing a mask appeared and called the first assassin's name, Kaiser, informing him that the infiltration plan had failed. Seeing the newcomer, Harry became even more frightened. He was clearly an assassin too. The second assassin bowed his head and apologized for the failure, but Kaiser remained calm, saying it was fine since today's mission was just reconnaissance. He suggested they should retreat. Hearing this, Harry, though still trembling, couldn't hide her joy. Her tail wagged slightly by instinct, glad she had escaped danger. The 2 assassins prepared to retreat. However, just as Kaiser was about to leave, he suddenly turned back to look at Harry, then turned to the other man and suggested taking the puppy with them. Hearing this, Harry became extremely tense, afraid she was about to be captured. But the second assassin calmly remarked that this dog seemed to be just an ordinary puppy and wouldn't survive in a harsh place like Pancrasson. After a moment's thought, Kaiser agreed, thinking it was better to leave the dog here, especially since he intended to claim this place for himself in the future. The 2 used magic to create a portal and then disappeared. Harry breathed a sigh of relief, her heart still pounding. She reflected on how she had just narrowly escaped real danger. If the masked assassin hadn't intervened, she might have been taken by those extremely dangerous men. Though still panicked, she wondered about the identities of Kaiser and the other assassin, especially since one of their voices sounded very familiar. Just then, Aben appeared where Harry was standing. Seeing that she was safe, Aben's anger was palpable as he yelled, "Hey!" As soon as Harry saw Aben, she was overjoyed and happily called his name. Aben was panting with anger, thinking to himself how far this troublesome puppy had run off. Paying no mind, Harry jumped on Aben, eagerly asking if he was worried about her. Aben replied irritably that no one would worry about a stray dog like her. But Harry took it as if he really was worried. Smiling brightly, Aben sighed and said the Emperor had been frantically looking for her. Harry was surprised to hear that the Emperor was so worried about her. The scene shifts to inside the annex. Harry is standing nervously in front of the Emperor. He stared at her, his eyes full of anger. Harry was sweating profusely, clearly sensing she was about to get a severe scolding. The Emperor immediately asked Aben where he had found the dog. Aben respectfully replied that she had been wandering outside the city walls. Hearing this, Harry suddenly realized how disheveled she must look right now. She fidgeted, not understanding why they were so focused on her appearance. The Emperor suddenly declared in a stern voice, "Harry needs a bath immediately." Aben agreed, suggesting he go tell the butler to prepare hot water. Harry was in deep shock, screaming in protest internally, insisting she could bathe herself. But the Emperor remained unconvinced, asking how a dog like her, who had probably never had a proper bath in her life, would know how to bathe. In a fit of desperation, Harry scrambled under the bed, saying that her instincts told her how to bathe, and that she was even as meticulous as a mature lady dog. Unmoved, the Emperor gently pulled Harry out from under the bed, reassuring her that he had bathed her mother, Eliza, before, so he knew what he was doing. Harry blushed with a mix of shame and anger, shouting that Eliza was not her mother. Her words made the Emperor pause, his expression turning sad. He said softly, saying that will make Eliza very sad. Harry felt cornered, thinking the Emperor was treating her just like a rebellious dog. The Emperor led her to the bathroom, determined to make her get clean. Harry panicked internally, trying to find a way to distract him. Suddenly, she remembered the two assassins and quickly said she had something important to report, that she had seen suspicious people in the garden. But the Emperor calmly dismissed it, saying that could wait until later. The bath came first. Despite Harry's pleading, he wouldn't change his mind. In the end, the Emperor personally bathed Harry in the tub. Harry sat there with a pout on her face, clearly not enjoying it at all. Afterwards, the Emperor left the room to change. Aben began to dry Harry with a towel, teasingly asking why she looked so miserable now that she was clean. Harry, with tears in her eyes, felt as if she had just lost a part of her human dignity. She found it unfair to be forced to bathe while no one would listen to her warning about the assassins. Aben calmly explained that they already had a plan in place. He suspected the intruders were assassins from Pancrasson who had only come to scout today. He warned Harry that if she kept wandering around recklessly, she would one day die a meaningless death. Harry looked at Aben, wondering if he was actually worried about her. Noticing his ears turning red, she realized he wasn't good at showing his true feelings, which made her give a slight, mischievous smile. Aben caught her expression, but Harry acted innocent, flatly denying she had done anything. Finally, Abel announced that she was dry and fluffy, and that he had called for Boris. Boris used his holy energy to soothe Harry's hunger. Although her craving for food subsided, Harry still felt an emptiness inside, longing for delicious dishes like grilled beef intestines or beef from her past life. Awkwardly, Boris quickly excused himself. The Emperor noticed Harry's sad expression and asked if she was still hungry. Abel suggested calling Boris back, but Harry quickly waved her pause, saying she wasn't hungry. She asked for permission to sit and watch everyone eat, thinking that if she couldn't eat, at least watching the food would be nice. She promised to sit still and not bother anyone. Abel objected, arguing that a dog shouldn't be in the dining room. Harry tried her best to make the most innocent and cute face to persuade the Emperor. Although he didn't answer right away, Harry put on an even more adorable expression, which melted his heart. He agreed to let her stay for a while, making Harry overjoyed, while Abel looked quite annoyed. At the dining room, Princess Brillia was already present. Brillia greeted Harry warmly, saying she hadn't left the palace yet because the food here was too delicious. Harry was overwhelmed by the royal banquet, especially the chocolate cake, her favorite food when she was human. She felt emotional, regretting that she was born a dog and couldn't enjoy human delicacies. Like chocolate, she began to yearn to live as a human again, to eat freely and experience everything. Harry suddenly remembered that Brillia was a mage and eagerly asked if she could help her become human. Harry thought about her special circumstances, wondering why she was reincarnated. As a dog, she knew very little about this world, other than the existence of mages and priests. Normally, if she had been reincarnated as a human or even a normal dog, she wouldn't have retained her memories, nor would she be able to speak like a person. She felt trapped in a body that didn't belong to her and began to think there might be a special reason for her reincarnation. If there really was a reason, then there was still hope to become human. Filled with hope, Harry asked Princess Brillia if she could use magic to turn her into a person. Brillia hesitated, admitting that she would need to find materials related to biomagic first. When Harry asked if it was possible, Brillia explained that it might be possible, but there had never been a successful case. Only a few eccentric mages had ever tried. Seeing Harry's disappointment, Brillia comforted her, promising to find a way to help and advising her not to give up. Harry was touched and asked more about Brillia's magical abilities. Learning that Brillia was the second most powerful mage in the Empire, Harry was incredibly impressed. She curiously asked who was the most powerful. Brillia replied nonchalantly, "My fiancé." Harry was surprised to learn not only that Brillia had a fiancé, but that he was also the most powerful mage. Brillia mentioned that Riora, who specialized in biomagic, might know how to turn a dog into a human. But currently, Riora was at the Sun Tower, so he was quite difficult to meet. However, she promised to contact him soon. Harry curiously asked what the Sun Tower was. She explained that it was a famous and beautiful tower near Pancrasson. Harry was surprised to learn there were many such towers, realizing she knew so little about the world outside the royal palace. This made her even more determined to understand the place she was living in. Later, while walking with the Emperor, he asked if she had fun on her tour. Seizing the opportunity, Harry asked for one thing. She wanted to learn more about this world. Her words surprised him, and he asked for more details. Harry explained that although she had been declared a divine beast, her only ability was being able to talk. The Emperor comforted her, saying that the ability to speak alone was impressive enough for a dog. But Harry argued that while people might be surprised now, they would eventually see it as normal. She worried that if she remained ignorant, people would look down on her. Harry confessed that she felt ashamed for not knowing basic things, like the names of the towers. She thought, being a divine beast that knows nothing about the country is just weird. In a moment of emotion, she confessed that what made her most ashamed was that she used to be a human, yet was so ignorant. The Emperor immediately noticed the word human in her sentence, but Harry quickly corrected herself, saying she was just a super intelligent dog. The Emperor sat down, stroked Harry's head, and expressed his admiration for her way of thinking. He agreed that being able to talk would eventually lose its specialness and could lead to social criticism. He didn't want Harry to be looked down upon and promised to arrange for a very good teacher to teach her about this world. Harry was excited at the thought of having a teacher. The Emperor began to consider who would be most suitable for the role, weighing many options. He briefly thought of Princess Brillia because of her expertise in magic, but was concerned about her offensive magic skills. He also considered professors from the Lycenio Royal Academy, but wasn't sure who to trust. Finally, he began to lean toward another option. The next morning, Harry eagerly rushed to her class, looking forward to meeting the teacher who would teach her about this world. She imagined it could be Princess Brillia, Ciari, or someone both handsome and gentle. However, when she saw that Aben was the one who would be teaching her, she was stunned and shouted in disappointment, "Why are you my teacher?" Aben was no happier, replying coldly that he didn't want this job either. Meanwhile, the Emperor just hoped Harry and her teacher would get along. Harry shouted in frustration, expressing her dissatisfaction with the current situation. She asked Aben if he was forced by the Emperor, and he admitted that he was. The Emperor had assigned him this task to prevent information from leaking out. Aben mockingly said that even if Harry hated it, nothing would change. Harry said angrily that she would rather be taught by Princess Brillia. Aben replied that Brillia was at the academy and therefore not available. Harry sarcastically asked if the Emperor told Aben to spin his arms in circles or walk 100 meters on his hands, would he do it? Aben ignored her, telling her to stop talking nonsense and sit down. When Harry sat down, she saw a map on the table and curiously asked what it was. Aben said that since she wanted to learn common knowledge, he would start with the basics, the location of the empire. Harry was flustered, admitting that she couldn't read. Aben let out a smirk, saying he didn't expect her to. Aben began to explain the continent's geography to Harry. He spoke of the Resemblance Empire, the largest and most prosperous land in the Western continent, ruling over half the territory and being the most powerful nation. Harry was surprised to learn the Emperor ruled such a powerful country, but tried to act normal. Aben continued, talking about the holy nation of Akana to the east, separated by a mountain range. He described Akana as a sacred, inviolable land, ruled by the Pope and full of noisy, annoying people. Harry found his description of the people of Akana strange. Then, Aben pointed to the kingdom of Payson, located next to Akana. He said if it weren't for Akana in the way, the empire would have invaded Payson long ago, which complicated matters. Harry noticed Aben's harsh tone and began to feel he was a bit like a tyrant. She asked about the islands located above Payson, wondering if they were country. Aben replied dismissively that they weren't worth invading. They were the Belvedere Alliance, a coalition of 6 small nations. Then he moved on to Pancrasson, the northern territory near the Arctic, cold and sparsely populated. Aben said the people there often encroached on the empire's land due to a lack of resources, calling them troublesome and barbaric. The ruler of Pancrasson was called the Kaiser, and Aben described him as a rude, uncivilized man. Harry suddenly realized the name Kaiser sounded familiar. She remembered the masked man named Sway. She wondered if that person was the Kaiser. Harry described the person she met as having blonde hair and light blue eyes, wondering if he was handsome. Aben confirmed that was correct, but was surprised and asked Harry where she had heard that. Harry confessed that she had met him before. Aben immediately became serious upon learning that Harry had met Kaiser, the king of Pancrasson, and questioned why she hadn't said so sooner. Harry replied that she didn't think it was important because the Emperor had previously told her not to worry. Aben, annoyed, made Harry tell him exactly what happened. Harry nonchalantly said she was just taking a walk in the garden and got lost. Aben grumbled that the king must have too much free time. He turned to leave, saying he would report this. Harry began to worry if she had done something wrong by hiding the fact that she had met Kaiser, but she reassured herself that the Emperor had said not to mention it. Trying to push her worries aside, she reviewed today's lesson. Although it was a bit confusing, she found it very enjoyable. Harry reflected that before, the memories of her past life always made her feel like an outsider. But after learning about this world, she felt for the first time that she truly belonged here. She hoped that, in time, she would naturally blend into her current life. And one day, when she recalled her old memories, she could smile instead of feeling sad. Suddenly, the Emperor burst into the room with a serious expression, urgently calling for Harry. Harry, surprised, asked why the Emperor was running like that. The Emperor immediately picked Harry up and asked if it was true that she had met Kaiser. Worried, Harry nodded in confirmation, understanding that Abel must have reported it. The Emperor seriously asked why she hadn't told him sooner about it. Harry explained that she thought it wasn't important because the Emperor had once told her not to worry about such things. Hearing this, the Emperor was flustered and began to recall. Harry recounted meeting the assassin before being taken for a bath, mentioning that her mud-caked fur at the time was real. She reassured the Emperor that she was fine, even offering her soft paw as proof that she wasn't injured. The Emperor let out a sigh of relief, but remained serious, saying that while it might sound a bit strict, it was best for Harry to stay inside the palace. Harry asked if it was because of the man she met, Kaiser. The Emperor just gently told her not to worry. Harry mentioned that she had pretended to be a normal dog when she met the stranger. The Emperor looked at her with a doubtful gaze, which annoyed Harry. She protested loudly, saying that his face was clearly full of disbelief, and insisted that she had acted very well, completely fooling him. The Emperor feigned agreement, but calmly remarked that it was hard to call Harry a normal dog, which made her even more irritated. Harry pouted, saying that she knew she was special and extraordinary, but her acting that time was truly excellent. She complained that it was frustrating not to be able to prove it. The emperor thought for a moment, then suggested she could prove it by barking like a normal dog. Harry hesitated, feeling embarrassed, but when the emperor teased that he would call Abel over, she quickly decided to do it herself. A bit nervous, Harry began to act like a real dog, starting with a light sniff and a soft bark, then barking louder and louder. After the intense barking session, she panted heavily. Just then, Abel walked in after hearing the strange noise. He wondered what the sound was and said that the emperor's sudden departure from the meeting had worried everyone. Abel guessed it was probably some drunkard making a fuss, as the palace was heavily guarded. An intruder was impossible. However, he still said he would go check if any knights were slacking off. As Abel left, muttering about someone causing a commotion in broad daylight, the emperor turned to Harry, gently advising her not to stray too far from reason. That evening, several court ladies brought stacks of documents for the emperor to handle his official duties. Harry lay comfortably on his lap, watching intently as he read the papers. She thought to herself that even when he was focused, he still looked very handsome. She also wondered if he was working in his bedroom, because she was there, which made her feel warm and sleepy. Before long, Harry fell asleep in his arms. The next morning, she woke up, stretched, and realized it was the first time she had slept in the emperor's room. Not wanting to be a further bother, she left quietly. Walking down the corridor, she looked around, trying to find her way. Suddenly, she heard someone whispering nearby. Curious, Harry hid around a corner and listened to two men talking in low voices. They revealed that the rebel faction had finally begun to move and that Duke Miles, who was thought to be dead, was actually still alive. Somehow, he had survived the previous chaos. Harry listened with bated breath as they said that Duke Miles had even managed to contact the North, not through the capital but by sea, along with someone named Harry Benu. The mention of the dangerous sea route at Kraken left Harry even more confused and worried, as she didn't fully understand what they were saying. She tried to piece it together, thinking that Duke Miles must be planning a rebellion. The two men worried that although the Empire seemed peaceful recently, a major upheaval could be approaching. Harry began to panic, fearing for the peaceful world she had been reborn into and silently wishing that nothing bad would happen. Just then, she sensed someone behind her, making her tense up and break into a cold sweat, thinking it might be one of the two suspicious men. But when she turned around, it turned out to be Abel. He gently picked her up and scolded her for being late to her lesson again and wandering around. Harry sighed in relief, joyfully pouncing on Abel's face, so moved that it was him, even though she usually disliked Abel. At this moment, she was truly grateful to see him. Shocked and confused, Abel yelled at her to get away, not understanding her strange reaction. Later in the classroom, Abel sternly told Harry to sit down, and she obediently listened. Abel said that today's lesson would be about monsters, using a children's book appropriate for Harry's level. Curious and a little scared, Harry asked if monsters were real. Abel explained that monsters were evil creatures of all sizes, from small ones that often appeared in forests or occasionally in cities, usually dealt with quickly by guards, to medium-sized ones that appeared in remote mountains, which were much more dangerous. He warned that encountering a medium-sized monster without combat skills could mean instant death, so it was best to run. Looking at the book, Harry shivered, thinking it was like a fairy tale, and then asked if the monster in the picture was as big as a large tree. Abel corrected her, saying that was still small. A giant monster was as big as an entire castle. He said that this type of monster had only been recorded 20 times in history and rarely appeared deep in the mountains before charging out to attack cities, destroying entire territories. Harry screamed in terror as she imagined the destruction, realizing that the city could also be attacked by them. Abel reassured her that none had appeared in the last 50 years, but then deliberately joked that it could still happen. That remark sent Harry into another panic, imagining being crushed by a giant monster. Just then, a knight arrived to report that the vice commander was calling for Abel. Abel prepared to leave, teasing that the lesson was over and calling Harry a coward, which made her furious. Later, as Harry was walking in the hallway, still annoyed that Abel had scared her, she ran into the maid, Jenna. Jenna cheerfully greeted Harry, joking with her for a bit before asking where she was going. Harry excitedly shared that she was on her way to see the Emperor. Hearing this, Jenna carefully looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she whispered to Harry that the Emperor was actually a very scary person who never smiled, was unfriendly, and could even be dangerous if angered. Jenna paused mid-sentence, but added that she was relieved the Emperor seemed to be kind to Harry. Harry thought to herself that the Emperor she knew was not at all as scary as Jenna described. Not long after, she arrived in front of the Emperor's room and called out to ask if he was inside. Seeing her, the Emperor reminded her that she was supposed to be in her lesson. Harry explained that Abel had something to do, so the class ended early. Smiling, the Emperor knelt and asked what she had learned. Today, Harry immediately ran into the Emperor's arms, trembling as she told him she had just learned about a scary monster called Omen, and that if it appeared, she would become a snack. The Emperor laughed gently, softly reassuring her that Abel had forgotten to mention something important. The palace had a protective barrier, so monsters couldn't get in. Hearing this, Harry puffed out her cheeks, annoyed that Abel had scared her for no reason. The Emperor smiled, then suggested that if she was that scared, she could sleep in his room from now on. Face flushing, Harry reacted shyly to the unexpected offer. She jumped out of the Emperor's lap, screaming in alarm as he started taking off his shirt. Calmly, the Emperor explained that he was just changing his clothes and told her to wait a moment. Embarrassed, Harry squeezed her eyes shut, thinking that even if she was seen as a dog, this was still too careless. Noticing her strange reaction, the Emperor curiously asked why she was doing that. Awkwardly, Harry stammered that it was nothing. Smiling, the Emperor picked her up, placing her gently on the bed. He then mentioned that Brillia had intended to arrange a fancy room for her. Harry replied that Brillia did offer, but she refused because she didn't need such a big room. Hearing this, the Emperor rubbed her belly, suggesting that she should just stay in his room then. Stunned and bright red, Harry stammered her objections, worried that it would make His Majesty uncomfortable. She added that just sleeping together was embarrassing enough, let alone, and mentioned a rule that boys and girls shouldn't sleep together after turning 7. The Emperor looked at her, confused, asking what she was talking about. Harry was dumbfounded, thinking to herself, doesn't he know how shameless this world is? The Emperor remained nonchalant, saying that he liked being with her, his little puppy. He also said he would be spending more time with her from now on, which made him very happy. He said there were times he couldn't visit her, so being in the same room would solve that. Harry was moved by these words, whispering softly, "Your Majesty." The Emperor gently reassured her that if he could always see her, it would be easier to protect her if anything dangerous happened. He added sincerely, "I don't want you to get hurt, little puppy." Both embarrassed and touched, Harry reluctantly agreed to the offer, then told him to go to bed early. But the Emperor told her to sleep first, as he was still thinking about a few things. Curious, Harry asked what was bothering him. The Emperor said that he had been thinking a lot lately, especially about the growing resistance from the high officials. He said he had just witnessed them arguing, opposing every proposal, which gave him a huge headache. He shared his inner conflict. If someone he once trusted committed an unforgivable crime, should he overlook it or punish them? Seeing the Emperor looked so troubled, Harry boldly suggested that he should crush and lock up all the troublemakers. The Emperor burst out laughing, seemingly amused by her enthusiasm, which made Harry blush unexpectedly. She grew even more excited, urging him not to let them escape, promising she would always be there to listen if he needed it. That made him laugh out loud, remarking that a puppy could be so profound. Then they both slowly drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Boris transferred holy power to Harry. She felt it was a bit noisy outside and asked Boris what was going on. Boris hesitated for a moment before revealing that the Emperor had ordered the execution of a group of high officials, including Count Diallo from the border region. Harry was shocked and worried, realizing that her casual words from yesterday might have inadvertently led to this extreme action. She remembered Jenna's warning that the Emperor could be very scary. Just displeasing him could result in death. This terrified Harry, who feared that although she was currently pampered, if she one day fell out of favor, she could be in real danger. She decided to stop chewing on pillows to avoid causing more trouble. When the emperor returned to the room, he saw Harry covering her mouth with a cloth. He asked if she had eaten and noticed the cloth. Harry quickly explained that because her teeth were itchy, she was trying not to chew on anything. The emperor offered her a piece of his own cloak to chew on. Harry hesitated, worried it was expensive, and asked if it was okay. The emperor reassured her, saying he wouldn't get angry over such a small thing. Harry was touched by his consideration. She took the piece of cloak, then suddenly remembered and asked the emperor if it was true that he was going to execute Count Diallo just because of what she said the day before. She confessed that she had overheard a conversation and it had been weighing on her mind. Calmly, the emperor explained that Count Diallo had long been suspected of colluding with Pancrazio and that his punishment had been decided a long time ago. It was only because of Harry's words that he decided to carry out the punishment sooner. He gently told her not to worry anymore. Harry sighed in relief, impressed by his calm explanation, and happily wagged her tail. She thought to herself, the emperor is truly both divine and brilliant. Seeing Harry's emotions so clearly expressed by her wagging tail, the emperor smiled to himself. Just then, Brillia appeared, excitedly calling Harry's name. Overjoyed, Harry dashed towards her. Brillia picked Harry up affectionately, teasing her while cheerfully saying she had rushed back from the academy because she missed Harry so much. Harry was just as excited, beaming and saying she missed Brillia too. Turning to the emperor, Brillia greeted him cheerfully, but quickly noticed Harry's strange outfit. Embarrassed, Harry explained that she was given the cloth to chew on because her teeth were itchy, but she hadn't dared to touch it for fear of ruining it. Brillia was a little concerned, pointing out that it wasn't time for Harry's teeth to grow back yet, which seemed strange since her body hadn't changed much. Worried, Harry asked if something was wrong. Brillia reassured her, saying that if her teeth were already itchy now, it would be even worse when they actually started to grow. To help ease the discomfort, Brillia excitedly used magic to create a bone-shaped toy for Harry. Overjoyed, Harry enthusiastically started chewing and playing with the toy, surprised at how addictive the sensation of chewing was. She jumped around happily, and Brillia laughed, praising her for liking the toy so much. Meanwhile, Harry began to feel uneasy, wondering why she was becoming more and more like a real dog. Brillia cheerfully asked if Harry was done chewing and offered to give her a new one. A bit shy, Harry quickly refused and suggested they go for a walk outside the palace. Excited, one of Harry's ears perked up, but she cautiously mentioned that Abel had warned of dangers outside. Brillia dismissed the concern, explaining that a mage from the continent was stationed nearby to handle such matters. Still not at ease, Harry said that His Majesty might not agree. Brillia turned to the Emperor, promising she would protect Harry and that they would only be gone for a short time. Harry eagerly climbed onto Brillia's shoulder, pleading that they must stick very close together. They both looked at the Emperor with expectant eyes, and after a sigh, he finally agreed, telling them to be sure to return soon. Overjoyed, Brillia quickly got ready, then used magic to open a portal straight to the marketplace. Harry was amazed by the instantaneous travel, marveling at Brillia's magic. However, the excitement quickly faded as Harry turned pale from motion sickness, vomiting as soon as they arrived. Seeing Harry looking pale, Brillia rushed over, worriedly asking if she was okay and apologizing for not realizing she would get sick. As Harry gradually recovered, she noticed that Brillia's clothes had changed. Brillia explained that she used magic to change her outfit to avoid attracting attention. Harry silently reminded herself that although Brillia was very friendly, she was still a princess. Feeling better, Harry happily agreed to continue their walk. As the two walked through the bustling market, Harry was filled with wonder and excitement at experiencing the world outside the palace. Her excitement soared when she saw a meat stall, immediately asking Brillia if she could have a taste. Brillia gently refused, causing Harry's ears to droop a little. To cheer her up, Brillia suggested visiting the flower stall first, promising there would be more interesting things later. After looking at the flowers for a while, the two laughed and enjoyed the lively atmosphere. Harry excitedly asked about their next destination, and Brillia decided to take her to see some magical tools. However, trouble soon found them when two suspicious men noticed Brillia was alone and approached her with ill intentions. They plotted to kidnap and sell her because of her striking beauty. Brillia quickly realized their scheme, coldly declaring them to be slave traders. Angered, she immediately summoned lightning magic, striking the two men and sending them into a panic. With a serious face, Brillia ordered them to lead her to the auction site, threatening to strike again if they didn't comply. Witnessing this, Harry was terrified, not knowing what to do. Brillia questioned if they were leading her the right way, and one of them tremblingly confirmed they were. Brillia warned that if they tried any tricks, the consequences would be severe. The two men fled in fear. Brillia turned to apologize to Harry, explaining that this trip was actually pointless because the Empire had abolished slavery long ago. She said they would have to arrest everyone participating in the auction instead. Harry reassured Brillia that it was okay. Afterwards, the two arrived at the site of the illegal slave auction. Harry was horrified to witness people being auctioned off. Brillia, visibly furious at the sight, led the way inside. Suddenly, both Brillia and Harry were dragged onto the stage in a disheveled state. Harry was confused and worried, not understanding why Brillia chose to reveal herself this way. When the auctioneer introduced the next item as high class, the crowd was skeptical because the person's face was covered. They demanded the person lift their head, and Brillia complied, revealing her identity. She then asked the entire hall if they were enjoying the auction, before immediately using her magic, causing the room to erupt in panic as they realized who she was. People scrambled to escape, but Brillia used magic to stop them, creating chaos. Harry realized Brillia intended to wipe them all out. At once, Brillia's magic shot out from the building, causing everyone to faint. She ordered the auctioneer to tie up all the captives, and he hastily complied. Brillia turned to the newly freed slaves, reassuring them that they were safe and promising that security forces would soon take them home. A teenage girl among them thanked Brillia, and she gently comforted the girl before leading her to safety. When the royal guards arrived, the captain asked what had happened. Brillia stated clearly that she hadn't caused any trouble this time, but had merely intervened in a slave auction taking place in the building. The captain was shocked to hear about a slave auction. Brillia ordered the security forces to arrest everyone who participated in the auction. The slave traders begged for mercy, but Brillia coldly declared that there would be no leniency. As the captives were led away, the townspeople looked on, confused about what was happening. Harry suddenly noticed a familiar figure in the crowd. Looking closer, she wondered if it could be her brother, Haru. She hesitated, then gathered her courage and shouted his name. The person turned around, and Harry's heart pounded. She believed it was him. Later, back at the palace, Brillia noticed Harry still seemed troubled and asked if she was okay. The Emperor also asked with concern, and Brillia guessed that Harry might be feeling tired from the earlier teleportation spell. Harry nodded absently, but her mind was elsewhere. In a flashback, Harry remembered chasing after the person she thought was Haru. She had tried to follow him, but when she got there, she only found a deserted alley. Disappointed, she wondered if Haru could have been reincarnated into this world too, or if it was all just her loneliness making her imagine things. The Emperor and Brillia called her name, pulling her back to reality. Brillia asked if she was all right, seeing her so dazed. The Emperor also asked if she was still feeling tired. Harry insisted she wasn't sick, just a little tired. The Emperor joked about whether she wanted a dog treat, as he had prepared one, knowing she liked them. Brillia gently hugged Harry to soothe her. Touched, Harry thought to herself that her current life made her happier, and she didn't want to fall into illusions anymore. She smiled cheerfully. The next morning, Harry went to the training grounds, but found it empty. Annoyed, she thought she might have been tricked and rolled around on the ground in frustration. Just then, Kaiser suddenly appeared and greeted her, remarking that this was the second time they had met. Harry flinched, trembling as she recognized him. Kaiser sat down next to her, observing that it seemed she was trying to avoid him today. Harry nervously tried to calm herself, but Kaiser continued, saying he had heard about a divine beast appearing in Resemblance, a white dog. Hearing that, Harry's fear intensified. Kaiser laughed, teasing her, revealing that he had overheard everything she was muttering just now. Harry panicked, sweat beading on her brow. Kaiser noticed her wary expression and said it made him uncomfortable. He moved closer, causing Harry to scream in fear and beg him not to come any closer. Getting a real reaction from Harry for the first time, Kaiser mocked her, saying she didn't look like a dog at all. Frustrated, Harry asked when he had found out she could talk. Kaiser nonchalantly replied that he had known from their very first meeting. Now Harry was truly angry, her pride wounded, realizing that Kaiser had been toying with her all along. She asked what he was doing here, and he replied cryptically that he came to erase everything. Worried, Harry wondered what he really meant. Just then, Abel appeared, rescuing Harry from the terrifying situation. She sighed in relief, jumping onto Abel and telling him how scared she was by Kaiser's vague threats before he vanished using teleportation magic. Abel reassured her that he would report the incident and she didn't need to worry. Seeing Abel's clear anger towards Kaiser, Harry asked why. Abel confidently said that if Kaiser returned, he would handle him personally. Harry was impressed by his determination, but she grew even more worried as Abel picked her up and walked away. She asked what would happen if Kaiser really did come back. Abel asserted it wouldn't be a problem. He then contacted the guards, asking about the situation at the castle gates. The guard reported nothing unusual, but Abel ordered security to be tightened and the entire palace to be searched for an intruder. The guard confirmed and prepared to act. Harry looked at Abel with trusting eyes, realizing he was the commander of the knights. Abel asked if she was still scared. Harry was surprised by all that Abel had done to protect her, feeling grateful. She nodded, saying she was fine now. Abel thought about her predictable expressions, then continued walking. Harry curiously asked where they were going, mentioning she thought they were meeting at the training grounds. Abel revealed that was just a temporary meeting spot. The real training grounds were up ahead. When they arrived, the knights bowed their heads upon seeing Abel. Seeing Harry, they were surprised and asked if Abel was really keeping a dog, calling her cute and the divine beast of legend. Someone even joked that she was small enough to be eaten in one bite. Harry felt tense looking at the knights, but they were incredibly fascinated when they heard her speak. One guard eagerly asked Abel for permission to pet her. Abel agreed, but warned that if he did anything out of line, there would be immediate consequences. The guard knelt to approach Harry, but she immediately bit his hand and growled, "Don't touch me without my permission." The guard cried out in pain, trying to free himself from her bite. Harry sternly scolded him, saying that next time he had to ask her, not Abel. He quickly apologized, and she accepted as long as he understood. Tired of the distraction, Abel announced that the training session was starting. Confused, Harry asked, "I have a train too?" Abel reminded her that she herself had said she wanted to become a proper royal divine beast. Then he glanced at her current state, pointing and calling her small and weak, which made Harry freeze. She blushed and protested being called small, arguing that she hadn't fully grown yet. But Abel said bluntly, "You haven't grown a bit in weeks. This size is probably final." He seriously told her she had to train to at least build up her stamina, starting with 20 laps around the field. Harry was shocked and horrified, thinking 20 laps was too much. Abel reassured her that running would improve her physical fitness and many necessary skills. Harry tried to bargain. "How about just 1 lap?" Abel was firm, 5 laps. The two continued to haggle, finally settling on 3 laps. Abel agreed and told her to start today. Harry sighed in relief, feeling that 3 laps were manageable, and she eagerly started running with determination. She told herself, "At least I can manage 3 laps." After running for a while, Harry quickly became exhausted, trembling as she ran, trying to drag herself back to Abel. The guard cheered, "Come on, you're almost there." Finally, Harry staggered in front of Abel and announced, "I'm done." Abel was impressed that she didn't give up, offering gentle praise. Harry panted, drenched in sweat, but then Abel suddenly picked her up, saying it was time for her lessons. He reminded her, training and studying are 2 different things. Harry screamed in panic, "I don't want to," but Abel ignored her and carried on. That evening, tired and angry, Harry ran to the Emperor's room, muttering resentfully about Abel. Feeling bullied, she sniffled and ran to hug the Emperor, begging him to scold Abel for making her run 3 laps, and then forcing her to study, calling it bullying. The Emperor gently comforted Harry, explaining that Abel didn't mean to bully her, but was worried she would be in danger. Harry thought about it and felt it made sense. Still, she was skeptical of Abel's warmth. Although he had comforted her when Kaiser appeared, he wasn't usually gentle at all. Then Harry remembered something important. Kaiser. She immediately recounted her encounter with him at the training grounds.